Also welcome from me, and thank you very much for choosing to spend this beautiful Saturday afternoon here with us. My name is Kaare Meier, and I'm a physician working in Denmark, as it's being said, at Aarhus University Hospital. And I've been asked to give you just a brief presentation of the history. It's meant as an appetizer, but it also gives some background of what it is that we are going to be discussing for the next 5 days here in Montreal. Before I go any further, I should say that I have, as a clinician and as a scientist, I received travel-supported lecture fees from St. Jude Medical, the company that manufactures neuromodulation equipment. And I hope you'll find that this is an unbiased presentation. And as our good Maître de Cérémonie said, it is a therapy that goes about at least 2,000 years back. But just to start out with the definition of what neuromodulation is, this is the International Neuromodulation Society's definition that says that it is the alteration of nerve activity through the delivery of electrical stimulation or chemical agents to target sites of the body. That being said, this day and also this presentation is going to be centered on the electrical part. It's about how we can alleviate various diseases by stimulating specific nerve structures inside the body. And this idea with electricity, it starts with this fish. It's a picture I took in Egypt. And this fish is called a torpedo ray, and it lives in the Red Sea and in the Mediterranean. And it is able to generate quite a lot of electricity, and it was the only source of strong electricity that humankind knew for most of our history. In Greek it's called inarchi, and from there comes the word narcosis, and in Latin it's called torpedo, from that comes the word torpor. And we know the ancient Greeks knew that this fish had a power that could travel all the way through the line of the fisherman and affect his hand. We don't know if they used it for anything, but we know the Romans did, because we have this text that goes back 2,000 years where it says that if you have gout, all you need to do is just place a live black torpedo under your feet. This is what it may have looked like. It's a modern illustration. It doesn't look very pleasant. And even more dramatic, you can also cure headache. You just put the fish on the head. You just need to remember to remove the fish again, because otherwise it causes permanent damage. And I really love these pictures because, I mean, they look quite amusing. I can also hear some of you laughing. But it's also a very good reminder to us who work with these patients that many of these patients are in so much pain or so debilitated by the diseases that they're willing to do anything. So whatever we suggest to these patients, they will probably say yes to it. So it's sometimes a good reminder for ourselves to show some restraint. And as the presentation shows, it is not a thing doctors always have been very good at. The next technological development is 1,700 years later with the invention of a device called the Leyden jar. And that made quite a lot of electricity. And this gentleman is called Benjamin Franklin, and he probably remembered that there was something about pain and electricity. So he started also using this electricity to cure pain, but he was a physicist, not so much a physician, so he used a lot of electrical current, and his patient got burns, and that stopped electrical treatment in the American continent for quite many years. This gentleman, his English is called John Wesley. He is the founder of Methodism. He was much more positive. He wrote a book called The Desideratum, and this is a list of all the diseases that electricity can cure. My favorite is blood extravasated. That could also be cured by electricity. He may have been a bit optimistic, but his enthusiasm meant that the Europeans really started experimenting with this new thing, electricity. As for the technological development, what happened is the work of three gentlemen changed even more. This is Italian physicist Volta, who made the voltaic pile. It's like a modern battery. It can generate a very reliable constant current. This gentleman is also Danish, actually. He's called Hans Christian Ørsted. He discovered electromagnetism in 1820. And then Michael Faraday from England discovered electrical induction in 1831. And with these three technological developments, we have all the components of modern electricity. And of course, that was also immediately put to use. Missionaries brought home acupuncture from the Far East, and somebody in Europe thought, let's apply electricity to that. So that's electroacupuncture. That's from 1820s. It's still used today. This is my favorite. This is Francis's galvanic electromagnetic tooth extraction procedure from the Wild West in 1858. It's supposed to have worked, but it must have been quite a setup. And by the end of the 19th century, every doctor would have a device in his office that could generate electricity to the patients. And they used it for everything. Sometimes it made it work. Sometimes the patient got cardiac arrest. And then somebody discovered also that you can also use electricity to revive them again. So it must have been a very interesting time to be a doctor, less so for the patients. And they slowly started, because there were so many problems with it, so they slowly started leaving this electrical therapy again. And the problem also was that nobody had any good idea of what it was that they were doing. And that started changing with this paper from 1965, and it became known as the gate control theory of pain. And it was a theory developed between a British neuroscientist, Patrick Hall, and Ronald Melsack, who was a professor of psychology right here at McGill University in Montreal. And their theory, it was groundbreaking. Nobody really liked it at that time, but they tried to provide a theoretical background on how you could modulate, how you could affect the body's own modulation systems for pain by applying electricity with electrodes. And most people thought that it was a fraud, had a lot of criticism, but then 2 years later, Ron Melsack, here from Montreal, and an American neuroscientist called in Sweden, they developed small, tiny electrodes that they put in their own bodies first. I mean, they were real scientists of the day. And then they used it to treat 8 patients suffering from horrible pain in the nervous system, what we call neuropathic pain. And these 8 patients got much better, and there's nothing that gives interest for theory as if somebody shows that this works out in practice. The same year also, we had this paper that was the grandfather of what we now call spinal cord stimulation. It was a 70-year-old cancer patient with horrible, horrible pain and terminal lung cancer. And he got an electrode implanted in his spinal cord. And unfortunately, he died. He died a week later, but from something else. But for that week, he was almost pain-free. And that sparked even more interest in this new thing. And then history, as it always does, tends to repeat itself. Everybody thought, okay, this is the answer to all our problems. Lots of patients got implanted with unreliable, primitive, homemade equipment. We didn't really know how to do it properly, and we didn't know who to implant, because it's not just a matter of what we do, it's also a matter of which patient you choose for it. So after the first excitement, then the therapy more or less died out. Then fortunately, somebody still thought, this is a good idea somehow. And we got much better technology, thanks also from pacemakers, cardiac pacemakers. This technology also spilled over to neuromodulation. We got much better at implanting, and we got a much better understanding on who to implant and who to stay away from. So that means that today neuromodulation is a completely changed field as what it started out. We also got a better understanding of these fields that we're generating, thanks to a Dutch physicist, primarily called Holzheimer, one of his students actually working here at McGill University also. Thanks to the Karolinska group and the group at Johns Hopkins, we also got a better understanding of how it works, what it actually do inside the body. And then we had some large studies on big patient categories from Richard Moore from the US, Krishna Kumar from Canada, who died recently, unfortunately, Marcus Kemmer from Holland, and some others. So that closes the circle from the ancient ages to the primitive electrical devices to a slow understanding of what it is that we're doing and where we are today. And today it is an exploding field. We're stimulating so many different structures inside the body, the motor cortex of the brain, recently what we call the sphenopalatine ganglion, deep brain structures, dorsal root ganglions, vagus nerves, sacral, spinal cord system, sacral nerves, peripheral nerves, and so forth, and it's expanding every year. I'm just going to extra briefly just present 4 of these therapies that are the most common, because those are also the ones you're going to hear about today. The first one, spinal cord stimulation, is the most common kind of neuromodulation, and that's what I'm working with also. We implant electrodes above the spinal cord, and we use it primarily to treat neuropathic pain and intractable angina. It's very, very hard to get an estimate of how many patients are being implanted, because this industry seekers, this is a good source, a reliable source in the industry. who says that about 70,000 implants are being sold worldwide a year, and above some of these are patients getting a new battery, so it would be about half to 2/3 would be new patients, I think. Peripheral nerve stimulation, where we implant electrodes below the skin near specific nerves, also to treat neuropathic pain, and also to treat severe headache, as what we call an off-label indication. That means that the companies do not recommend it, but physicians can do it. Nobody knows how many patients are being treated per year. We have deep brain stimulation, where we implant electrodes deep inside central brain structures, primarily as Michelle said, for Parkinson's disease and dystonia, about 20,000 units sold per year worldwide. And sacral nerve stimulation, that is implanted electrodes above the sacral nerve roots, used to treat fetal and urinary dysfunction, and also with some off-label emerging indication, irritable bowel syndrome, about 30,000 units sold per year. So for these 4 therapies alone that very, very few people have ever heard of, even very few medical professionals have ever heard of, there is a global revenue now, an estimate of $2.6 billion American dollars. That's a lot of money, and it's supposed to raise by about 15% every year. So what we're trying to do as physicians is that we still want to keep the pioneering spirit and trying to keep all the excitement because of the old days, because that's what brought us here. But what we need to do, of course, is trying to avoid making the same mistakes as the people who came before us did. And that's what we're going to do for the next 5 days here in Montreal. And that's also why we need the public attention to it. And for that, I thank you more for coming here and joining us this afternoon. Thank you very much for your attention.